you be charged income tax on the state pension? Get your calls in. We've learned this week that the full new state pension is expected to rise by £560 a year from next April. This is because of the triple lock promise. More than 4 million people on the new state pension are set to receive an annual sum of £12,535. That is just 35 quid below the threshold at which income tax is due, and with pensions guaranteed to rise again under the triple lock, they're projected to tip into taxable income in 2027. Now, some people on the state pension, it's always important to say this, they are already taxed if other benefits such as carer's allowance, incapacity benefit, bereavement allowance push them over the threshold. But this will be the first time that those who rely solely on the new state pension will pay income tax on that sum. Emily, how mad is it if, it's, as a society, as a state, we pay out with one hand and then instantly take that money back from people? Does that feel like common sense or any way to run a country?
No, not at all, because effectively most of us pay into, all of us, through our tax and national insurance when we're, throughout our working life, we're exactly paying into the government coffers so that when we retire, and of course the state age for retirement has been, increasing, so Albie and I are going to have to work longer than had we been born, 20 years previous. And so we pay in so that when we retire, we have that public pension. And it seems to me crazy. I absolutely agree with the triple lock. Pat McFadden's absolutely right to again commit this government to that. But it seems to be crazy that in 18 months' time, potentially, millions of pensioners will be dragged into paying tax if it goes over the current personal allowance threshold. It's been held, the threshold, at £12,570 since 2021, and I can't see Rachel Reeves, she's got a big budget coming up in, I think, November, isn't it, end of October, November time. I can't see her increasing those allowances. So obviously with the fiscal drag, pensioners will be taken into that. As you say, it's worth saying that many people do have private workplace pensions. They have other sources of income when they retire, and obviously anybody who earns over £12,570 has to pay tax on that, like we do now. We benefit from that personal allowance. What I would like to see is actually an increase in that personal allowance.
Isn't it crazy, equally crazy, Albie, that we seem to be blaming pensioners for having the triple lock? We're looking at triple lock being the problem, when in fact, as Emily said, fiscal drag is the problem. The fact that these taxable thresholds, the personal allowance, has been frozen by successive governments for so long. That's where the problem is.
Fiscal drag is a problem. You're never going to get me, as someone who wants taxes to be lower, to disagree with the fact that fiscal drag is a problem. It's not just pensioners who are being dragged into taxable thresholds. People are being dragged into the higher tax threshold. People like teachers, police officers, who the higher tax threshold is just not for people in those middle-income jobs. That fiscal drag is affecting us all. And if fiscal drag is affecting us all, then it should affect pensioners too. I don't see why pensioners should be exempt from paying income tax if the personal allowance is being set at a particular level.
But the massive flaw in your argument there is, and I completely take your point about middle earners being dragged into the higher tax band of 40%, which I think is around, if you earn roughly over £50,600, you get dragged into the 40% tax band because of the fiscal drag. A lot of people are going into it. But you are penalising the poorest in society. If you're a pensioner and you're only dependent on your state pension, you don't have any other source of income, the fact that you will be paying tax on that extra maybe £100 a month has a far greater impact than someone who is earning over £50,500 who's dragged into that high tax.
Isn't it slightly patronising to older people to assume that they are the most vulnerable in society, when in fact we know that people can work into
I didn't
the 60s,
say the most vulnerable,
70s.
I said the poorest people.
Well, that's not necessarily so, is it? Because you get people, as they get older, who do have pensions. They are being cut slack. They're being given the triple lock, as well as those people who just rely on state pension. We make no differentiation between them. We don't say, well, you've got a private pension, you've got that income. They all get the triple lock state pension, and therefore they need to be taxed on it as part of their income as a whole.
No, I think that, pensioners, I think you have to, the problem is when you have, with government policy, often we talk about with benefits, often with benefits, there are some people who swing the lead, but it would be far more costly to make benefits really very, very precisely means tested. And so the reason why with pensions is that everybody gets the same state pension is because it would be far too costly to implement those
So you would
measures.
means test the state pension?
No, I wouldn't means test the state pension. I wouldn't.
Absolutely.
No, everyone gets the same.
I don't agree
Everyone
with
gets
this.
the same. And
I think
then,
it's nonsense to say that
extra money then has to be taxed.
I really want to take as many calls on this as we can because there's loads coming in. Diane's in Northumberland. What do you think, Diane? Is it OK, is it acceptable to tax the state pension? Give with one hand and take back with the other.
Definitely not. And I am so sick of the pensioners being bashed every day on the telly. I live on my own. I have good friends and I have family. But people who live on their own and they haven't got these people, they watch these programmes on the telly, they must feel like cutting their throat. It's so depressing. How do they think we afford everything that we need? If they give us any less, we'll have to go, go begging on the streets or whatever.
Diane, I haven't got a triple lock. I haven't got a triple lock on my income. People around the country who are working, who are providing the tax income for the rest of the country, none of them have got a triple lock on their income. They have to fight for any increase in their wages that they get. Why should pensioners be any different to the rest of us?
Well, I don't know. Why did they give us that? Would they like us all to starve or freeze?
Diane, you're not going to get any less. In fact, the reason why state pensions are going to be taxed is because the state pension is going up and therefore it's going into the taxable income that everyone else has to pay tax on.
But the allowance isn't going up. That's the point.
No, but the pension is going up.
You are starting to get taxed on, presumably, a triple lock is based on what's fair. As things get more expensive, as inflation goes up, the triple lock is there to make sure that Diane's income isn't affected. Now we're taxing her on it. That makes no sense at all. It is reducing what she gets year on year.
No, because she'll still get more. She would just get less. She'll get less than she would have got if she was not being taxed on it. So the state pension is going up into the taxable threshold. It is right that it's being taxed on that.
I just let's find out exactly what Diane's situation is. Diane, how much do you rely on state pension? Do you have any other benefits that are taxable as well? Are you already being taxed on what you get?
Well, I don't think so. I've got my work pension that I had, my private pension, where I did 30 years in schools and catering. Okay. I've got that pension and I've got my normal pension. But anything above that, no, I haven't got anything.
OK. I mean, there's a good chance that you...
I mean, that young man on the panel...
Albie?
I would like... Albie, I can never remember his name.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. I mean, when you get to pension age, you probably won't need to worry about pension because you'll have plenty of money on the rich side.
I don't know if that's true, Diane. I mean, if you look at people of my generation, there are lots of people who don't have pensions at all. People aren't able to save enough for a pension. People don't have the backup of the property that a lot of pensioners right now might own. So actually, the pension situation for people that are my age is likely to be worse than for your generation. So the state pension is probably going to be more important for my generation because we have no assets than your generation who are actually quite asset rich but maybe cash poor.
But cash...
That's right. What I would love in this country is for them to go to the House of Lords and clear out that money-grabbing rabble because they can get £400 to walk in there, sign in and walk out. No tax, no national insurance. We've got an ex-Prime Minister that's got a full wage for the rest of her life after working 42 days. That makes me sick.
I love the points you're making, Diane. I do think that we might be going off on a bit of a tangent. I'm going to say thank you for providing our kids with school lunches for all those years. Yes. That needs to be said. Shirley's in Hampshire. Shirley, do you think it's fair to tax the state pension?
If you fall into the tax bracket, yes, definitely. I don't think just because you're old, you don't have to commit to paying your bit towards society.
But Shirley, what about those people who rely exclusively on the state pension? Where's the sense in giving them money and then straight away taking it back from them? Where the administrative cost of doing that, it outweighs it, surely. It's just nonsense, isn't it?
No, I don't believe that you can run a society like that. You either contribute if you're in that bracket or you don't. We get the triple lock. We're quite happy to take that because it's fair.
Shirley, how are you how are you affected by this yourself at the moment?
Well, I'm 73. I get a state pension. I've got one small private pension and I'll be paying tax.
OK, and you are happy to pay that tax because the private pension takes you just over, and I don't know how it's sorted out, whether it's an annuity or it's coming in regularly, and you say, fair enough, if that's what I'm getting, a certain amount has to go back to pay for the country's needs. Yeah,
definitely.
I mean...
And now I can moan about paying tax.
Well done, Shirley.
You just want to be part of our gang, Shirley. I get that.
Yeah, I do. I don't think just because you're old, you've got to be eliminated from everything.
And that's what I was saying there about being patronised a little bit. Do you think, is that part of it? At 73, you think, well, I'm still part of society. I want to pay in.
Yeah, I still pay my union dues.
Good for you.
Oh, good for you. Listen, Shirley, lovely to talk to you. Thanks for your call. Jim's in Manchester. Jim, do you think it's fair that pensioners should be taxed on their state pension, even if that's all they're receiving?
Good morning.
Morning.
No, I definitely do not think it's fair. And first of all, can I just take your panel to task? Because they've fallen into the trap that most commentators do, and they call it a benefit. It's actually an entitlement that pensioners are paid into.
Well,
it's not a benefit, it's an entitlement. We paid tax all our working lives, and hopefully this is to ensure that we have some decent quality of life.
Jim, I did say that. Jim, it's Emily here. I did say that at the start of the programme. We have all paid into it, so it is an entitlement. We're basically getting back what we've paid in.
This is the difference between a right and a privilege, Jim. You're saying it's a right. Albie's saying that he feels it's a privilege. Is that fair?
Everything we get from the state is a benefit. It's not a right. You know, people talk about getting welfare. People talk about getting pensions. People even talk about getting healthcare as if it's a right. These are privileges that are paid for by the taxpayer.
Jim's right. We've paid for it.
Otherwise,
we've paid into it through our NI and our tax.
Yeah. Otherwise, I can say if by your argument I say I choose not to pay national insurance, and of course we don't have that option.
You can't choose not to pay national insurance.
Therefore, it's an entitlement because you've paid it in the first place. That's the way. Jim, am I right in summarising what you're saying? You've paid that in over all of those years. Therefore, that's the promise that the government made to you while you were doing that.
Taking that gentleman's argument to its logical conclusion, then obviously we should be allowed to opt out. But obviously we can't opt out. We pay national insurance, we pay tax.
So, Jim...
And I qualified for my state pension last July. I'm in receipt of an NHS pension that I've worked nearly 30 years for. Overnight, my NHS pension was cut by 1/5 because that was tax that I had to pay. So, you know, we never stop paying tax. Okay. And my question would be, when is enough? When do we get
Jim,
enough to live on and have a comfortable retirement?
On this privilege and right situation, would you say that a young person going to university getting a student loan is a privilege or a right? A benefit or a right?
That's their choice to do that. We pay tax when we work and we have no choice but to pay into the system. If people want to go to university, they don't go in with blinkers.
But Jim, when you were younger, you could go to university for free, whereas I had to pay.
But it's a choice. That's a choice.
Is it a privilege
it's not,
or a right?
I'm afraid, Albie, that's not a brilliant comparison. Because
it's exactly this. These are benefits. These are benefits that the state and politicians make decisions whether or not they're going to pay for things.
Let me speak.
Or not
Let
pay
me
for
speak.
things.
It's not a like-for-like comparison because, as Jim has said, you don't choose whether to pay income income tax or pay national insurance. If you don't, it is a criminal offence. You will be prosecuted. You will be sent to prison. Therefore, we all have to do it.
Okay.
Going to university is a choice or not.
Let's hear back from Jim. Jim, do you think that taxing the state pension makes no sense at all, regardless of how much you've got coming in? Even if you're still working into your 80s and 90s, you've got a massive house and you're earning millions.
It makes no sense, Matt, for the point you've made, that you're giving with one hand and you're taking away with the other. And the other point is that, like the lady from Durham made the point, and like you say, it was deflecting from the argument. It wouldn't be so bad, but when you look at the way our tax is spent and what it's squandered on, that's a little bit rich. To keep coming after the pensioners, who are an easy target, when you've got affluent millionaires who can afford sharp accountants and sort them money. I mean, I don't blame them. If I had the money, I'd employ an accountant and have an offshore account.
Jim, do you have any sympathy?
Quite honestly,
do you have any sympathy for people in their 20s that have just come out of university and are saddled with student debt, trying to make their way in the world, cannot buy a house at the moment, but they are paying, because that's the way it works. It's not your money that's being used now for your pension. It's not sitting
mine.
there. It's Albie's, it's Emily's, it's mine. It's somebody that's come out of university and has no chance of buying a house at the moment. They might look at this in a completely different way and say, absolutely tax those people, tax pensioners, because we need to keep the lights on in the country.
yeah, I get that argument, but like I say, if things are that bad and they come out of university with little or no chance of getting a meaningful job, then quite honestly, I wouldn't go for that option.
But they're trying to better themselves, Jim. They're trying to get themselves somewhere close to the opportunities that maybe you had when you were that age, which were completely different.
Yeah, I get that, but OK, if they're choosing to do that, then they should contribute as well.
Jim, I just wanted to ask a very quick question. You said you had an NHS pension. I don't know what you did in the NHS, but you obviously worked there. I think you said... Go on.
I was a paramedic for 30 years. I'm still working part-time. And the question I get asked is, you know, do you still need to work? Surely you can manage. And my response is, I could manage, but after working since 1974, quite honestly, I don't want to just manage. I want a decent life.
And I totally hear that.
Life where I get the occasional holiday and stuff like that.
I just wanted to ask, in your work as a paramedic, you probably would have seen that generally speaking, older people tend to use the NHS more. Is there an argument to say that, I don't agree with it personally, but is there an argument to say that, you know, older people tend to use the NHS more, therefore it's, you know, paying a little bit more tax is basically paying back for their use of the NHS?
Maybe if we looked after our elderly and ageing population a little bit better, they wouldn't need to use the NHS more. Okay. Don't get me going on that one. Because
well, I mean, we live in an aging population, and with that comes a greater burden on the NHS. Jim, thank you for your call. Really informed and loads going on in there. Di's in Cheshire. Di, do you think it's fair to tax people on their state pension, even if that's all they get?
I don't think so. I'm 78 years old now. I receive £179 a week pension. I don't think a lot of people realise that there are millions of pensioners like myself who don't get the £220, £230 a week anyway on pension. So obviously I'm not taxed at the moment.
Okay.
Chance would be the fine thing. But who actually thinks that £220 or £30 a week is a good amount to live on anyway?
Di, do you get pension credit?
I can't quite figure that out.
Di,
I don't get pension credit.
You don't get pension credit. Have you applied for pension credit?
I get £65 a month also on a job I had for quite a few years, which isn't a great deal. The other thing I've just received, thank goodness, is I have some attendance allowance now because I have spinal problems, and that has helped. But the first question is, I don't really know how people could think you can live on, even now, which I don't get, £220 or £30 a week. I appreciate there are people out there who have money, and I know people who have very, very good pensions, but I'm not one of them.
OK, well, listen, thanks, Di. Thanks for telling us about your circumstance, sticking up for those people who aren't necessarily earning, that don't fit that millionaire pensioner image that a lot of us might have in our heads. It's a great call, thank you. We're going to pause there for a break. When we return, we'll take more of your calls. Should people on the full state pension have to pay income tax? Live on 5, Emily and Albie in the break have been absolutely going at it.
I know, we've been really arguing.
We need another programme for the stuff that goes on in the break.
And normally we're quite nice to each other, but this time we've really gone for each other about the contract between the state and the individual and pensions.
Well,
and Albie thinks that, pensioners are... Well, I don't want to...
What contract?
Oh, there's a contract between us and the... when the whole point about society is that we're all in this together, rich and poor, but obviously the rich should pay more and the poor should pay less.
And they do.
No, and so when we work and when we're paying our tax on national insurance, it's a contract with the state so that when we retire and we look after our old people and they can, have enough money to pay for food. Di's call was illuminating. She got around £170 instead of the £220. Who can live on £170 a week, Albie? I defy you. I defy you to live on £170 a week.
How many people in their 70s and 80s, and Di was one of them, also have another source of income? They can still work. The assumption that as soon as people get to 67, 68, that's it, they retire.
Matt,
like maybe our parents
they will be
used
paying
to.
tax. And if they work and has additional income, they will be paying tax because they will go over the personal allowance.
Someone needs to tell...
the state pension should not be taxed.
Emily, please, let me make the point, because you're putting quite a lot of things across to me. What needs to be told to people is everything that the state pays out, all the public services that we get, healthcare, pensions, schools, education, defence, that is contingent on the economic conditions of the day and the government's ability to provide those services. So I'm sorry, people that were told in the 1980s when the economy was booming, everything's going to stay the same, we'll be able to pay for everything. You were lied to.
The economic conditions of the day is that we are taxing pensioners and not taxing the tech bros.
We are taxing them.
We're not taxing... Well, they are here offering us back the work through Trump's visit. We can see exactly how much they're making from this company. How much tax are they paying us, Albie? We are focusing on pennies, £10 here and there on the state pension, rather than looking at corporation tax.
The highest earners pay the majority of
multi-million
income
pound
tax.
earnings.
And they can afford to pay more instead of penalising the very poorest in society who rely on £170 a week and can't afford their food bills and their utilities.
We are going to be talking about whether you're glad to see Donald Trump back in this country and whether we're lazy for taking weight loss medication. But now we're going to get straight to your calls. 0207 862 2222 with Tony in West Yorkshire, taxing the state pension. Tony, what do you reckon?
I'm absolutely furious about it, to be honest.
Tell me why.
Well, what you've got to consider is that the national living wage equates to about £24,000 a year for someone working, let's say, a 35-hour week. And we're talking now about taxing a pension that's half of that amount. Don't you think we need money to live on?
OK, but...
how can we cope with that? I'm slightly more fortunate. During my 45 years of working, the company contributed to the SERP scheme, the State Earnings Relief Rated, well, whatever it
Related
was.
pension
I can't
scheme.
remember the exact terminology. So my pension actually was increased, and I'm already paying tax on my pension. In fact, I also have a smaller, less than the state pension annuity, which is also taxed, of course. I mean, I paid, £1,500 last year in tax.
Tony, at this stage of your life, forgive me for asking, do you have any dependents?
Not dependents as such, no.
Do you have to commute to work?
No, I'm 77. I'm finished now. I wouldn't be able to work now from
do you have to pay rent or a mortgage?
Health. No.
OK, so comparing the state pension to the living wage is unrealistic, isn't it? Because people who get the living wage possibly need to do all of those things. Whereas at your stage of life, you can take that money and use it to keep yourself going.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm hard up, but comfortable might be the way to put it.
So what are you complaining about then, Tony, just out of interest? People who are working have to pay 50% of their income on housing costs. You don't have to pay any housing costs whatsoever. You've just said you mortgage-free house, you don't have to pay any rent. You've said you're comfortably off. What exactly are you complaining about?
I just don't see why, having paid into this scheme of national insurance and all that, why now should we have to pay tax on what we consider to be a right, not a benefit, I would add. It just seems crazy. Perhaps if they wanted to do some sort of a tax scheme, then maybe they should keep the people on the basic state tax exempt, and then just charge interest on anybody, the tax on anybody on the higher rates.
So means testing, is that what we're talking about, Tony?
Well, perhaps, yes, perhaps that's the way to go, and that might solve the problems of people moaning about millionaires getting taxed.
I think, Tony, it's Emily here. I think we should extend the personal allowance for everybody. So I think it's 12,570 at the moment. I think the personal allowance should go up to about 13,000, maybe a little bit more in the coming years. And then we should basically put another 1%, but brace yourself, Albie, another 1% on income tax. I think it should be 21% instead of 20 and 41% instead of 40 for the higher tax band.
OK.
Yeah, that's a thought.
OK. And until Emily actually gets elected, that can't happen. Unlikely to happen at the moment because we're being told we can't afford anything. Thanks for your call. Tony, Eve's in Devon. Taxing the state pension Eve, excuse me. Does that make sense to you?
Not really. I think there's an assumption that all pensions or the vast majority of them are really well off. Well, they're not. And I think means testing could be an idea. You see, I remember the days when it was 15% on our mortgages. 2008, the banks rolled us over and we lost our endowments, so mortgages went on for a great deal longer. And as a WASPy, I lost £50,000 of what I was expecting as a pension that I didn't get. So, of course, all my savings went. People lost their homes, lives. And a lot of my friends didn't even get to 60.
And this is where we come back, Eve, to that contract, that promise that was made between the government, the state, if you like, and you, that made you pay in your national insurance on the promise of getting your pension at 60. Is that right? Yeah,
and don't forget, a lot of women were not allowed to put into pension pots. My company did, but it's very small and that is taxed. So I don't, if people have got their own homes, well, that's grand, because sometimes they can pass them on to their kids, who are paying off their, college fees. But that is a choice. Part of that promise, though, Eve, when we're talking about consistency, aren't we here, and having an expectation that's fulfilled, the state pension's always been taxed. It's always been taxable. So if we changed that, that would be changing that promise for someone like Albie, for someone like Emily, who is currently paying their NI, currently paying into it, and saying, actually, no, we're going to cut pensioners even more slack. Well, the thing is, it's not a lot of money to live off if you look at the actual state pension. And when I paid my NI for my mum's pension, I was very happy to do so. It's 3.5 million women that have lost a lot of money and are still catching up. And as you get older, you're designed to fail. You will get ill health. You will not go on to 100. It's a small percentage of people that do. It's the resentment I don't understand. There's like this thing about, the cohort of the elderly. What? Don't they want to support the elderly? Yeah, thank you for your call, Eve. The point Eve makes, of course, as you get older, a bigger portion of your spending, Albie, will be towards things like food and your heating bills as you spend more time in the house. We've seen those rocket over the last few years. So whatever we say about what they're getting from the triple lock, what is going out, has changed dramatically in the last 3 or 4 years.
That's the same for everyone. And a lot of these people who are older, from the boomer generation, live in mortgage-free houses and don't pay any rent.
This demonisation of the boomer generation, can I say very quickly?
I've not demonised anyone. I've made a statement
very quickly that
the
retired people contribute so much to society in non-paid-for jobs, volunteering, libraries. They do great things.
Got to jump in. Thank you for all your calls. Thanks for your spirited debate.